listening to the All Things Geekery podcast. This is episode 2 of season 4, and this one's called The Overhaul. I'm your host, Detached.
Hey guys, and I'm Victus.
Well, welcome back, everyone. We're so glad you're here. We are only a few weeks away from our 4-year anniversary of the show, and whether you guys have been with us from the start of the show or you have just found us, we want to thank you guys for stopping by, joining us, and we hope you guys enjoy this episode.
In this episode, we talk about the confirmation, finally, from Bioware that they will be hitting the big old redo button on some major aspects of Anthem. Next, we'll talk about the latest game to movie adaptation starring everyone's favorite blue hedgehog. And finally, we'll finish out this episode talking about something of the phone concepts that have come back from the dead regarding smartphones. Flip phones. No joke. Stay to the end. Wild.
It's wild.
Oh, it is wild. It's interesting. We named this episode The Overhaul. And
because everything is everything is kind of right in line with that. It's funny.
Right. Yeah. Just, with the ending with the flip phones, but
well,
I guess the one I'm most excited about, and I really want this one to come true, is Anthem.
Oh yeah, absolutely. If they do a overhaul on this game, I think if they do it right, it could be a huge success. I mean, the base game that we got when this thing launched was fantastic. I thought it was great, but it just didn't have the content behind it to really back everything. So
agreed. From day one, we saw it with the beta, and seen so many out there of the different updates that have hit where they try to keep to their original plan, as it were, with releases and content coming out. And some of those have been success within the Anthem community, but not to the level that needed and should have been there day one of Anthem. We started out, it's probably 2 months ago. We heard whispers and rumors and from very credible sources saying that Anthem was going to get, all we were seeing across the headlines, Anthem 2.0, Anthem 2.0, Anthem redo, no confirmations. And then finally, Casey Hudson, Bioware GM, released an article that confirmed they are going to be pulling back, stopping with the major updates that they've been doing so far, the seasons. They're going to stop those and look at, this is a quote from the article, focusing on long-term designs of the experience, specifically working to reinvent the core gameplay loop with clear goals, motivating challenges, and progression with meaningful rewards. i.e., what the game should have had day one.
Yeah, I mean, that all sounds great and fantastic on paper, and you can say that all day long from the stage, which we got that kind of talk when they originally launched this game, and it is not what they were able to deliver on. And we've seen it a lot from different gaming companies. They show this big, fancy, fantastic game at a big gaming conference, and then voila, it shows up on the shelves, and sometimes it's a disappointment, and unfortunately, this is one that was a disappointment. So I really do hope that what they're talking about doing, if they can focus their manpower and pull back what they're talking about on these major updates and refocus things, then I think it may have a shot to actually come back to life.
Yeah, and it's mind-boggling that just as we're referencing Anthem right now, it sounds like we're talking about a 3 to 4 to 5 year old game.
I know.
Anthem is right at 1 year old.
Yeah, which is stupid. I mean,
it's just mind-boggling to think about that. Where it is a game so many people wanted to succeed. I still do. I go back and listen to the Anthem soundtrack, and I think about the combat system that's still there. And it's like, I want to pick it up, but there's really not a whole lot extra for me to do. Every single point that they mentioned in here, reinvent the core gameplay loop, clear goals, motivating challenges, progressing with meaningful, they're not there. I could go in and start Anthem right now, but it'd be purely to listen to the music and let myself, I'd fly around and fight some things for a little bit. I'm done.
Yeah.
For quite a while. Right. And that's what got me addicted to what Anthem is. But all those other pieces are missing.
Yeah.
It's like you order the entree and it tastes good, but it was one bite. That's it.
Yeah.
Like it was phenomenal taste. One bite. There's nothing. There's no much left.
Yeah. There was no dessert. There was nothing that came after it. Like you said,
that was it.
Well, and the original story that we got was a little choppy and a little broken for my taste. I don't think they did a good enough job of kind of wrapping some of that stuff up, and they just kind of left it, which I get it. Broken game, not enough manpower to finish it. Wasn't able to put the time and effort into actually doing what needed to be done. And I think it left a bitter taste in most people that played the game, but it does have some life. There are still people playing it, and I actually even went back in about 2 weeks ago and just popped back in to see what it was. And it, like you said, it was kind of a one and done. You still have that, hey, I'm able to fly and do these, cool moves, but there is literally nothing past that. Even with some of the fixes and little minor bug updates that they've been doing over the last few months, there's just still not a lot of meat to the game.
Yeah, I agree. And they use the wording in here, in a couple months.
Right.
And that's really it. In a couple months, and I'd extend it to, let's go 6 months. 6 months from as you were listening to this on release date of this podcast, if it has not gone through a complete redo, or we are seeing massive gains to that extent, Anthem will be dead. 100%.
Yeah, I think, and I think the biggest disappointment for this game really came with it. It had such a big hype around it, and it was the new looter shooter that was going to take place for people who were looking for this new game. And it was supposed to be replacing some other time for streamers, YouTubers, gamers alike. And it was fun to try, but they hopefully can turn this around. I hope there's enough manpower. And I think one of the big questions is them doing this rework on a game that was already, kind of laid out in a foundational style for us. There's a base game there. Does it create enough hype for the community to come back, create enough momentum to help with the jobs from Bioware? Bioware's not doing the greatest over the last few years with their games. They've got, a little bit of a stain on them right now. So,
well, then they've lost some key leadership out of Bioware. Now, it could have been the same leadership that was causing them problem before, but regarding that, you can expect some talent to also leave with that as well.
Yeah,
and to be able to pull off some things, you need that key talent. There's good developers and programmers and everything out there, but there's a certain peoples inside the group that make success happen.
Well, and I think brand loyalty can only go so far. With the developers, whether you're in leadership or project management or developer, graphic design, whatever function you have inside that team, that brand loyalty to BioWare will only go so far when, I know these developers don't have a long lead time to get this stuff turned around. So, we've seen it in plenty of the corporate businesses before, especially the gaming industry. It's just a hard lifestyle. It really is, because they've got such a tight deadline, and they push these developers to come up with some ridiculous stuff. in a very short period of time. And usually the outcome is what we've seen in games like Bioware pushing out Anthem. And what we saw at an E3 was much different than that game we got. And it was somebody sitting in an upper chair saying, this is your deadline. You can't go past that. I'm paying you money. And this is what you're supposed to deliver on. And unfortunately, it's just not the real world. I mean, money cannot make a great game. You know, it takes the people with the talent and the vision and the time. And money is just the, fuel. You put money into it, and that does make those gears turn. But there's also just the creative aspect of things. And just because you have a big checkbook and a budget doesn't mean that creative aspect goes faster. Sometimes it takes time. And a lot of these gaming companies don't have the time that it takes to put out a good product at their first first drop. And I think that's the biggest thing that I'm really seeing through the gaming community over probably the last 10 years is, do we have amazing games nowadays? Yes, we do. But I think there's some quality that has really just kind of dropped because it's all this DLC. Hey, let's put out a base game and then we'll do these DLCs or expansions, or we'll call it a 2.0, Anthem 2.0. We'll do this overhaul. That's just not fair to the consumer in my mind. I would rather gaming companies push those deadlines out and actually be a realistic deadline and give us something that is good, quality, fun to play, and still making money. I'm fine with paying for it, but don't make me pay $80 for a game that you get 3 months worth of playtime and then it's dead. And then say you're going to rework the whole thing. To me, that's just kind of a kick in the face.
Right. Well, and then, it's a double-edged sword, because you got a balance of how much the game were, on initial release, right? On how much is in the game, and then continual updating to the game. Now, sometimes games release, they're one and done, and it's a great game, and the company brings in the royalty and they move on to the next one. But Anthem, and people will, they just kind of hate this word, but it's a live service game.
Yeah.
There's going to be an online game. In the realms people were in originally, where they're like, oh, it's going to be the Destiny killer, so forth. But in those regards, you have to keep the expansions coming.
Yeah.
To release data and have the ability the financial ability to be able to keep those rolling. And if not, you have the chops and you've already released great content. And then you'll say, okay, hey, this is a paid expansion on the way. Here you go. Or what has been really popular with the communities across the board, gaming communities, is you have a very rich, in-depth market in the game where people can spend their money on. I bring an example, Warframe. Warframe is free to play.
That's a great model. That's a great model for a game.
It's a great model. Free to play, you bring it in, you start off. Yes, there's a lot of little not necessarily walls, but certain parts of the game are slower to get through if you haven't invested just a little bit of money into it.
There's definitely some paywalls in that one.
Yeah. But even with that, they make all of their money on, they'll release content because doesn't have a PvP aspect to it. It's all about you taking on the world. Right. They have, you can buy Warframes basically, because they'll release it and you can buy them for platinum, which is the currency you can buy with your real money. And then you can also trade platinum to other people or items that those people have. I mean, there's people that have not spent a dime on the game, but have a massive kind of not monopoly, but just financial system going where they've made so much platinum from other people in game because they'll go out and they'll farm stuff and go and sell it on the trading system and make all their platinum there, essentially making themselves money. So that there's that. bringing in something like that where you keep the continual rolling out of content to be free to having a very rich in depth market or some way that they can keep bringing in cash to be able to support those free updates. Destiny had a great example of something that was brought in as a cosmetic and then allowed the money from that cosmetic. There was such a love for it that the money for it funded entire free release of the next special missions that hit. I think that happened to be the Outbreak
Prime.
No, it was the cosmetics for the Whisper gun that you can find in the game that then funded completely, or as much as the articles talked about, the Outbreak Prime, which was another exotic hard mission to come across.
It was, but
you get free content to everybody.
Yeah, but that, like you said, that brings up a good example is, you get these games like a Destiny, large, massive game. It's got the PvE, it's got the PvP, it's got kind of that space travel MMO grindy piece to it. Anthem, it's another good example of a game that, like you said, they're going to have to create a way for some finances, because everybody that has already paid money for this game is not going to go reinvest money for something that they never got in the first place. So I think that's BioWare's biggest challenge, is just like Warframe. It's an amazing game. It's fun. Like you said, it's free to play. And they've got a very creative marketing system of how to make money. They've done it for a very long time, and they've become a very successful company. Destiny is another one. We saw them break away from their big checkbook company, which was Activision. They took over their own company again. They're back to being them. And they had to come up with some creative ways of making some in-game currency and funding those things. They've done a good job with it. But you're always going to have the naysayers, the complainers, the already paid for this, just everything that happens from now on should be free. That same mentality means that I can walk down to the local car shop, buy a car, and gas should be free for the rest of my life. That's the same mentality that you're telling me that you don't want to pay for some DLC content that comes out for game. That mindset just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, well, and that's what to bring. If, let's say, they nail on all parts of what Anthem should have in the game, and it just clicks really well, and it's just phenomenal. Yeah, you can release it and word of mouth will spread for it, but to really bring back those that have already paid for it, you got to release it free.
Absolutely.
Free to those that already paid. And yes, go ahead and have it, full price or close to full price for those that are coming in. Granted, because it's basically new content depending on how much they rework. So yeah, those getting into it have to pay for it. But that also, this is going to be, let's say they go the route of No Man's Sky update, right? Complete rework of a lot of things where you got to bring in those to allow the money to come in quickly and people get going with it. You got to bring in those content creators that will talk. Yes, there's several YouTubers out there, big YouTubers that cover Anthem, and that's kind of all they cover.
Yeah.
And props to them for keeping with it. Props to them for keeping up with the content, covering all the updates.
Yeah, they've done a good job with it, for sure.
I think one is called This Is Anthem. I'm going to go ahead and or Anthem News. I think there's several out there. But to bring those in and allow the content to continue to flow, they got to go that route. They have to for it to be reborn and to grow, as part of the company. That way they can start making money off of it. Right.
Yeah. Well, and you made a good point with the whole YouTubers and streamers out there. I mean, we live in a digital age of everything, and these gaming companies, as much money as they make off of these games, the Twitch community, the Mixer community, the YouTube community, they're the ones that are marketing this game to the actual consumer that is down playing this thing. And, it's not like the 80s and 90s with the Super Nintendo and the Sega and the Dreamcast, and GameCube. And, we're talking bigger expanse, as far as the games, the amount of game titles that we have today in just general, whether they're AAA titles like an Anthem or a Destiny, or, they're down to like a little indie title. A lot of that community comes down to when somebody finds this game, they love it, they stream it, they videos on it, they push content on it. And that truly just helps these gaming companies even more with their marketing. And then you have things happen like what Anthem did, is people hopped in it as soon as the game came out. What happened with, the Twitch channels? And Anthem was one of the top dogs as soon as the game came out, because the Twitch streamers were pushing that content. They were playing it day by day, and it was an amazing game. And what happened after they finished the story? There was nothing left. And all of that hype, all of the marketing, all of that chatter, and it completely died off. And I think that is a dangerous place for a lot of these big companies, because they talk a lot of big talk. They say things about focusing their teams, and they say things about pushing out this great content. But really, are they? Or are they just giving us a little bit so that, we can go watch these Twitch streamers and YouTube streamers and Mixer and all of these different platforms? Destiny, being the game that it is, has been successful over 7 years now.
Close to it, yeah.
Yeah, almost 7 years. That's a big staple in today's society as far as the digital age goes of gaming. Minecraft is another one. The longevity of these games is crucial to their success. And as much as Anthem, wanted to be this big Destiny killer and AAA title, which it could have been, hopefully this rework does it. You mentioned No Man's Sky. There's a game that had massive hype and everybody wanted a part of it. And when it released, it was not what the community wanted. So what did the company do? They reworked most of the game, and they relaunched a game that was actually playable, and they actually made something that was pretty fun. So it's not impossible, but it is hard.
Yeah. Agree on all those points. And just to clarify, the one person I was calling out is your Anthem.
Oh,
he does
yes.
great continual Anthem videos about new stuff coming out, look back. And people are still interested in Anthem, because I'm looking at they're doing recap videos for Anthem right now, and multitude of the videos have 150,000, 250,000, 500,000 views. Still talking about Anthem, so people want to play it.
That's crazy.
So it's going to see if this continues on, because there's going to be a lull. Bioware confirmed it in their article. They're going to pull back from the season. So we're going to see a great lull happen with Anthem. There's actually a joke going on around right now, because apparently Anthem has left their Christmas lights on a little bit too long. The Christmas decoration.
That's awesome. Yes, that's one thing I did see.
Poke fun of that.
Yeah, when I hopped back in, it was probably the second or third week of January, and I was sitting, and we launched it here in the living room, and my kids looked at me and said, "Hey, Dad, is there something that needs to update on this game? Because there's still Christmas lights hanging around, and it's January." I said, "Well, I don't know. Maybe they forgot about them."
Yeah. Yep. We'll see what happens. Hopefully they'll update that. But then also there's going to be a lull.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lull between now and whatever update they plan on doing. I'm going to give them 6 months before they start showing good stuff. Either A, you release it 6 months from now, or B, we're at a point where people are like, whoa, this is actual gameplay. This is stuff that's actually going to be in the game. They're not ready to package it and put it together, but oh yes, we're ready. Yes, we were teased by that one video that showed a gameplay of Anthem, which apparently that was barely even engine gameplay.
Yeah.
I don't know. the one that we saw at E3 for Anthem that got us really
Right.
hyped up. But yeah, we'll see. People want to play it, and we'll see if it needs to go ahead and just carve in a tombstone for it, or we'll see a rebirth
Well,
following those games like No Man's Sky and I had the other one on top of my head. That's a big one compared to that.
I don't remember. I'm trying to think of anything that came out that was a rework, but No Man's Sky is the only thing that comes to mind right now.
Also, because everybody's comparing it to, will this be another No Man's Sky?
Which is not a good category to be in.
No, it's not. You are in a deep hole if you're saying that, and they pulled it off. We shall see if Anthem can do it as well.
Well, I have very few hopes, but we'll see. Hopefully they do it, because I would like to see what they come up with. Always.
I just want to go. I want to play a game where I can listen to that type of genre of music that they picked and rolled out. For
that was ridiculous. The soundtrack for the game was amazing.
So good. So good.
That soundtrack was definitely amazing.
And that's one of the things that still keeps me to it. I'll go back and I'll listen to that soundtrack.
Yeah.
Please don't change that. Yeah. Change what needs to be changed, but let me play a game that has that soundtrack in it.
Definitely. We said it. We titled this whole thing the Overhaul. So we talked Anthem. Now we're getting ready to move into a movie topic that I was very skeptical of, and I think
you were outright hateful of.
I was kind of bitter when I first saw the preview of this movie, and that would be the Sonic the Hedgehog film that just recently came out. So before we get into it, let's do a little rewind back to months and months and months ago. There was a little teaser trailer that came out with this horrific, god awful, whoever the designer was needs to have a slap in the face of Sonic made. I mean, Sonic's eyes were shaped wrong. He had weird, hairy arms and legs that were fleshly colored. And then he had these white human teeth. An abomination when it comes to the Sega version of Sonic. So I'm pretty sure every fan out there would agree with that. But I do have to say, the entire community coming together and basically questioning, like, what in the world did you guys just do to this beloved character that we played when we were kids? They stepped back and they reworked this entire CGI design of what Sonic looked like and gave something back to the community that I was really impressed with. They did a fantastic job with what Sonic looked like in the final product.
So what you're saying, it wasn't just one big great conspiracy that they would draw up at least attention to the movie by purposely releasing a bad CGI trailer?
I'm not saying anything at this point. I plead the fifth because I'm still trying not to give it as much credit as that I liked it.
Oh, oops, my tinfoil hat's still on.
Yeah, take your tinfoil hat off. So this is basically, I wrote down a lot more positives on the movie than I did negatives, which
I'm quite shocked. I thought you were still going to come out of it with a couple negatives. I mean, I had my hopes because even so just to give you guys that are listening background on this, we were thinking of topics for this podcast. I was like, oh, hey, I can't remember who. I'm pretty sure I brought it up because, like, how about we go and review Sonic? Yeah. And all I get back from Detached was a, that's all I got.
I'm pretty sure there was an emoji face in there, and there was
there was exactly an emoji like, and he kind of, stared me down like, really?
Some disgusted.
Really, we're going to do that?
Some disgusted eye rolled gifs in there as well. Yeah. I was not looking forward to watching it at all, but it actually kind of surprised me. It was definitely good. It did have its flaws and its faults. So here's some of my positives that I gave for the film. I will give you my very first positive is that I was a Sega kid. I grew up, in the 80s, and I played the Sonic games. They were probably one of my top favorite games of all time. So with that being said, playing the games and seeing what they had come out with, I had little hope for this movie, but I can say it's actually pretty darn good. It does have, like I said, it's got some flaws, and it is definitely oriented towards the kids. There's not really a lot of even adult humor. There's a little bit, but not a lot. So if you grew up in the 80s and the 90s and you know Sonic from that time area, they did an okay job of bringing Sonic back to life. But what they really did was they kind of set themselves up for a film franchise, and you can definitely tell that this is the very first movie in that film franchise. So did they do some good things? Yeah, I think they did a fantastic job on the cast. Good job, Jim Carrey. If you guys didn't know, Jim Carrey is Dr. Robotnik. And I have to say, he was my favorite character out of the entire movie. He really was.
See, I agree. You can definitely pick out the Jim Carrey, he definitely didn't change or go too far into a very serious, what we've been used to, Dr. Robotnik, across the animated Sonics that we've watched and the games we played, etc.
No, definitely not.
This was
like straight on
a much more crazed.
Yeah,
I wouldn't put it as like a intellectually ingenious level craziness about Robotnik, which oddly fit.
Yeah,
I'm not going to say he was my favorite character because the actor that played Sonic, Ben Schwartz, is now in Forever.
Ben did a fantastic job at Sonic, hands down. Best person they could have picked for Sonic. The thing that I think really made Jim Carrey's character stand out to me is because he went back to the old 90s Jim Carrey that we kind of knew, that really just over the top personality they had in say a movie like The Mask. When The Mask first came out, it was just way over the top, and that's really what Jim Carrey's character kind of, you mentioned it, this crazed doctor, and that's really what Jim Carrey kind of reminded me of in the movie, was The Mask, but with a weird mustache and he Robotnik. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think his character was probably my favorite out of the bunch. There were still some memorable people. James Marsden's character was great. The sheriff, Tom,
yep,
played a key role in the whole kind of setup of the comedy, and just kind of played that kind of in between from Sonic and Dr. Robotnik. So it was a good laid out movie. The other positives is, like I said, they got Sonic right. They actually spent the money. They reworked him. They even went back and kind of pulled in some of those little 80s and 90s nostalgic vibes from the video game. There's some classic sounds in there. There are things that we grew up with from playing the games that they even put into the movie just to catch the older generation's attention. But I think they also did a good job introducing the new generation who maybe have never played the Sega Genesis version of Sonic. They now have this great cartoon that is oriented towards this new generation of kids.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Those are my positives for the film. Yeah.
I'm gonna chime in before we get to our negatives. The nostalgia in this, for any of those that have kept up with Sonic and know the little callbacks here and there, and talking about just the different aspects, which I have to go back and look to see if rings in any version of Sonic did teleportation, which is not a spoiler. You see this in the trailers, but apparently they can create portals. So I got to see if that was just an adaptation to the movie. If so, hey, it worked.
Don't remember if it did or not, because I didn't play all of the Sonic games later on in its franchise. I played the early ones though, and I don't remember the rings having a teleportation piece, but maybe some.
Oddly, I'm think there was something in Sonic CD that may have done something like that. That had some type of system.
That
like
would be really cool.
But one of the coolest callbacks. If you played any of the Sonic games, you know that he collects coins as he goes throughout the level. And if he gets damaged in any way, those coins immediately leave him. He drops those coins. Yes, you can go back and try to pick them back up, but you usually end up losing a lot. And towards the end of the movie, when he is carrying the pouch,
this was great.
With him, every time he got hit really hard, they went everywhere. I didn't realize it until I was walking out. I was like, oh, I see what you did there. Very nice.
It was a really good callback. And as soon as I saw that, so I was watching a Kevin Hart skit, and he was talking about seeing a guy get hit so hard that change done flew out his pocket. As soon as I saw this, these gold coins fly out of Sonic's pocket, all I could hear was Kevin Hart in the background on the stage. And man, I saw this dude get hit so hard. 35 cents done fall out his pocket. That's all I could hear. That's all I could hear. That's all I could hear. But great job on the nostalgia, kind of bringing that back in.
Yep.
Yeah.
Every aspect of it, we don't see a fully born evil Robotnik until the very end of the movie.
Yeah. It's a good call out.
And even then, it definitely sets it up of the Dr. Robotnik, especially from the visuals. We're like, all right, here he is. Because now, as you saw in the trailers, bald head, long extended mustache. He's got those goggles that match up to the what we've known of him so far. But that and definitely stick for after the credits.
Yes. So we will not drop any spoilers for this, but yes, definitely stick after the credits if you've not seen it.
Yep. Let's see. Agree on your point. There is comparing it to the last game to, I guess you could say, card game hit it first, but then really game. Pokemon.
Yeah.
Detective Pikachu, which fantastic movie for its rendition of how they played out the Pokemon world, but in real life. It definitely didn't have much of the curveballs that we expect and keep us on the edge of our seats. It was like just a good movie.
Yeah.
Right. Yes, it's predictable. Can absolutely agree with that point. But even to that point, there's a lot of great callbacks, and how they execute it is really good.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
I tell people if you take out the predictiveness of the movie, it is on level with how they executed and brought, kept it. The adaptation wasn't too wild, kept it right in line with what was seen in Detective Pikachu. And if you hated Detective Pikachu, well, okay,
you
sorry.
probably won't like this film at all. But I liked Detective Pikachu for the most part for what it was. And I do have to say that having Ryan Reynolds as Pikachu was a definite plus for that movie. So definitely a good pick. And even on this side of things, for Sonic, how they're setting the things up. In the movie, we got to see Dr. Robotnik and kind of his early stages of menacing evil. So I think they overall did a good job. The 3 big points that I would say were a negative for me is one, just the whole overall story seemed like one big act. There was not a lot of lore per se, quote unquote. There was not a lot of side stories that really built within the movie, and it kind of drug on a little bit. But I also understand that this is their very first movie they're doing this, so they're building the two main characters. They're building Sonic and his relationships, and they're also building Dr. Robotnik. You know, like you said, that what we saw in the very early parts of the movie was kind of this crazy doctor. In the end, we're starting to see a little bit more of this evil Dr. Robotnik. So it's not even really a negative. It's just more of a, my preference would have been to see a little bit more story development versus some of the, we're going to stay on this one point for so long in the movie. My big gripe was I didn't like how Tom had to end in the movie. That his story, I think, should have continued on, but that's just me. And then I've already.
Well, I kind of feel like it will, though.
Well, I don't know. I mean, we'll see. I think James Marsden was a perfect character for that fit. So I hope they bring him back. The mesh and the just the whole symmetry that the actor had together with the rest of the crew was great. So I hope they do bring him back.
I can say one of the kind of wasted actor talents that we saw for a blip in the movie, and then he was like, I don't think he was ever seen again, was Neil McDonough.
Yeah.
McDonough?
Yeah, McDonough. Yeah.
He's an amazing actor.
He is.
And we see him for just a blip and done. Albeit the character that he played, that's all that was needed. But the actor that they chose for it
seemed overkill.
I feel did a disservice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, definite overkill.
It was like hiring Robert Downey Jr. to play a bodyguard.
Right.
For the 5 seconds of
the
movie.
I want you to come play this extra, but you used to be Iron Man. Yeah. Definitely overkill. So, and then really my last point, and this wasn't even really a point, is like I said, I loved Jim Carrey's performance. I think overall he, to me, stole the show. He really just kind of outdid himself in that performance for me. But I think, like I said, to me, it felt like The Mask and that old 90s Jim Carrey that we used to see back in Ventura Days and The Mask had that humor level to him almost, and just the really big personality. And at times, it overpowered the rest of the crew. That sometimes can be a downfall for a movie, but I understand why they're doing it.
Yep, definitely. A lot of good other actors in there, but yeah, we got the trifecta of the three. I think Tom, James Marsden, and also Tom in the movie will have a continual role in it because they're all a family,
yeah.
Right? They're all connected together now. They're looking out for each other at the end of the movie, and things are going to happen that he's going to have to be continually there. So I don't. I see him as, if any of you out there watched Sonic X growing up, like I did, there was this constant young boy that connected with Sonic, was always there for him. And, it was out of his garage that Sonic and team worked on a lot of their stuff. I even think his grandpa was a scientist or anything like that. But, it provided that human to Hedgehog relationship. And I see Tom being that person continually. How he's gonna help him if the evil of Eggman returns, I don't know. We'll see. He did help him right at the end.
It's true,
but
that is true. So,
my negatives for the movie were: this is however you see it, is yes, it's a predictable movie. You kind of know how it's going to end about halfway through it. You can see the writing on the wall. But that's about it. I think they could have. I think the interaction between human and CGI was a little off in some scenes, and I think that's because of the rework. So give credence to that. There was actually a rework, because I've seen in, let's say some of the Marvel movies, the CGI integration to, human actors is phenomenal. You can't tell that one is CGI and one is not.
The technology nowadays is amazing for sure.
Yeah. So besides that, I didn't see any real negatives, over the top negatives, I should say, with the movie. I enjoyed it. I'll go watch it I'll pick it up on Blu-ray when it comes out. So yeah, and I recommend it to any that hasn't seen it.
Absolutely.
If you're even slightly a fan of Sonic, or just want to watch just a good movie,
to
watch
it was well worth it. It's not something that I would watch all the time, but I will definitely end up getting it to have in the collection for sure.
Yep. But with that, now done Anthem, Sonic, and another that I don't even know if I want to call this an overhaul. It's like a step backwards to some people.
It's nostalgic for us older people, and it seems like a step backwards for the newer generation. So
yeah,
this is an interesting topic because we're talking about the flip phones that we had. So one of the very first phones that I ever had, it wasn't a flip phone, but it had. I actually called it the little Nokia Ninja because it had the little push button on the side, and the whole front of the face of the phone would shoot down, and it would reveal all the numbers. That was my first cell phone. Well, actually, that was my second cell phone. My first cell phone was a Zach Morris cell phone. I had to lift it as weights, and it was 5 pounds. It had an antenna that was about 32 feet long. It was ridiculous. That was my first cell phone. And then I got this little push button Nokia phone. And then kind of the flip phones were starting to come out. And I don't remember the year of when those really became popular. But that's what we're talking about. It's kind of the reinsurgence of these new old flip phones.
Yeah. And to be clear, when we say flip phones, we're specifically targeting and talking about those of the touchscreen family, because flip phones have not completely gone extinct. They are still out there for those that they just want a phone to place a call or text, and that's all they need. But we're talking about smartphones, touchscreens, that are going flip phones. Which it was not even on anybody's radar to do something like this. And then rumors were going out. We were seeing some patents happen. All of a sudden, Samsung goes, "Hey, Samsung Fold." We're like, "What?"
Yeah.
You just created a phone to answer a problem that didn't exist.
Right. Well, to me, these are novelty items. They really are to me. Well, it's just, I think things like Samsung Fold, fantastic technology, but to me, it's just a novelty.
Yep. Well, and then Samsung, if you go back, you always see them as they'll bring out something to be the first to market, to grab that title, and usually it is a big dumpster fire of whatever it is. People most times end up forgetting about it. And, but during the time, they're the butt of the jokes, and this Samsung Fold was the butt of the joke because of some areas where it wasn't exactly meeting up to standard on stress testing. And one story is as part of the design, it had a film over the front of the phone when fully open, because this thing sat closed and looked like a normal phone, but it opened side to side and was about the size of a small tablet. So it opened down the horizontal axis, so left to right. There was a film on there that people thought was some type of protective coating as part of just manufacturers, like the screen you peel off some computer parts, or anything like that. It was not. People were trying to peel it off, and it was definitely part of the function of the phone, because it left behind some very heavy duty adhesive. So a lot of those testers out there for the Fold were reporting that, and they fixed that. I think the final version of it.
I think so. But
this stupid cost for it.
Yeah, it came out and it was like astronomical of how expensive this thing was. But it kind of hit the market, and everybody was like, "Really? What in the world is this thing?" I just remember watching the testers that are on YouTube. You know, they test this technology that comes out, and you get to see this stuff. And I don't know, especially the Samsung Fold when it first came out, it looked cheap. And I think it's because I had never seen it before. We had never seen it before, as far as, you know, the people. A phone that opened and closed, like you said, from the left to the right. It was one of those, my brain just did not understand the concept of why they did it. To me, I don't need a phone that folds in half from side to side. It just does functionally, it doesn't do anything for me. So I never really got onto the whole train of, hey, this is new technology. I'm all for new technology and pushing things forward, but this just seemed like a useless paperweight.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it was a phone that answered a problem that didn't exist.
It was never even an issue.
Yeah. So, you know, that one was the first one to hit. And then right behind it, something came back from the dead as part of the same genre. Yeah. Motorola Razr,
which was an amazing phone. The original Motorola Razr was a really, really good phone. It was. I love that thing.
Yeah.
I used to have one.
Oh, it was the bee's knees if you had a Motorola Razr.
You were the shiznit back then. Like,
yeah.
you guys listening.
You were top dog if you had the Razr. And here I was over here with my little, you know, cheapo, I can't remember the brand that I had at the time. Some white flip phone that I had, just enough so I could have a phone.
It's probably been a while since you guys have heard the term shiznit as well.
Shiznit or bee's knees. Yes.
Yep. I do remember I had a black, it was like a gunmetal finish Motorola Razr. It was kind of that aluminum metal finish that came out. So I had the gunmetal kind of gray or black, and my wife had the pink one. And let me tell you, it was like the best phone ever. In fact, I'm pretty sure somewhere in one of our storage bins, we still have them laying around.
Wow.
Yeah.
You go in a museum.
I actually still have my very first cell phone, the old Zach Morris paperweight. Let me tell you, when I say brick, I'm talking straight up old school Nokia brick. This sucker truly weighs like 3.5 pounds. It is dumb.
Yep. I may have some of my originals, but what's cool about what they've done, at least on aesthetic wise, is this particular version of Razr looks on the outside just like the Razr did of old. All the way up to this last version. It's got a little bit at the bottom where you close the lid and lines up, but when you open it, it is a full screen touchscreen. That's wild. Apparently it's also pretty popular for those that can afford the $1,400 cost of the device.
$1,400.
So another one of those where it's like,
let's just
another one of those like, you just gotta be, that's a chunk of change.
So let's just put that in a little bit of perspective. So $1,400 is $300 more than I paid for my very first car. Now, that's not saying much. My first car was a hunk of junk. It really was. But $1,400 for a phone. I mean, we're talking $1,400. You can buy some pretty decent, cheap laptops for $1,400.
$1,400 will get you 5 or 6 console systems in your house.
So just kind of putting those things together for a novelty item that looks like an old school phone, but then you open it up and it looks like any other touchscreen new age phone. that is a hard concept for my brain to really wrap around. That and taking glass and making it flexible it does not compute in my brain. That is so hard for my brain to wrap around. Seeing these phones fold, and I know some of them aren't glass and some of them are.
Yeah, some of them are. They're the technology in them, like specifically, we're going to call out our next phone, which is the Galaxy Z Flip.
Yeah.
Because Samsung wanted to come out with an actual good folding or flipping phone.
Yeah, the Samsung Fold was not it.
That was not it. It was stupid expensive, and there was just not enough want for it. But then they came out and announced during their big conference Galaxy Z Flip.
And everybody went wild.
Interface is like a combo of plastic with non-binding glass built into it. Whereas, I've seen I saw a guy take it apart and the glass is not solidified, where he was able to scrape the glass off this like finite layer on there. It's pretty cool, the technology to be able to do something like that. Like you said, my touchable screen is able to fold.
Yeah. And not break.
What in the world?
And not break.
Break.
I've watched, especially on things like the Motorola Razr, I've watched some of the stress tests that they did, and they had a close-up view. So we're talking 4K footage, close-up view of this phone bending back and forth, and how that inside curvature at the very, very tip of the folding point actually worked. And I mean, we're talking millimeters of this thing, and there's no snappage, there's no creases, there's no kinks. And when they unfold it, it's just this perfectly smooth piece of technology that you can touch and play games on and email and do all the things that you can on a regular phone. Mind-boggling. Really is.
Yeah. Well, and the Razr has its niche, people go out and buy it, but I think honestly the appeal of, if this genre of phone continues, is what we see in the Galaxy Z Flip. And honestly, I was sitting here thinking about it. The downside of current smartphones is they tend to take up quite a bit of space. Like, you can't just easily fit them in your pocket anymore. You drop them, and usually, in my luck, they'll land directly on their screen.
That's what's happened to mine just recently, actually.
Yep.
I have had this thing for a long time, and I went to slide it into my pocket and thought it was in my pocket because I felt the pocket, and my finger was in my pocket, not the phone. And when I let go, the phone was on the outside of the pocket. And sure enough, it dropped right down the side of my leg and hit the very corner of that glass. But it didn't shatter the front glass. It actually shattered down the corner and through the side of the back of the phone. So I got lucky.
Oh, yeah.
I got lucky. Still usable. But I do catch my finger on this side. That's the only bad thing about these new phones is they've got this glass in here. Conspiracy theory.
Yeah. I mean, it's been a bane of smartphone users' existence.
Yes.
To drop it on that screen. That's, unless you have massive case, Autobotter case and extra screen on it that you can peel off and replace anytime you want. But the Z Flip, just looking at, and this is kind of what has appealed me to it, is it hides the entirety of the screen in the clamshell. So when it's folded down, and it folds up like any flip phone, so you can drop it, and you're going to damage the outside.
Right.
That's never been a problem. But then you'd have a fresh touchscreen every single time, pending it doesn't hit and flip open and then fall some more. Which, no, my luck, it probably would. And it's impressive stats on it too, for being a little phone. I didn't know it, but for them to actually get it to work, they have a dual battery system in it. One in the top, one in the bottom.
It's amazing how small the technology is. I mean, just to be able to have a battery that can power these devices are, hundreds of times more powerful than some of the early supercomputers ever were. Just the amount of technology that fits inside these is a modern day miracle.
Yeah. I mean, we're looking at a little over 3,000 milliamp, which is equivalent to what we have in our phones right now for, life of the phone.
Yeah.
And it has those that match modern, not some of the like S20s that were announced from Samsung, but very, very good stats on the phone. And even in the taking apart, some of the technology that was used in, it's like, oh, this is the camera. And I swear that thing was no bigger than he could barely fit it between his fingers, and not crush it. It was like this, very neat stuff in it. Well, kind of loss of words on just where we're at with smartphones now.
Yeah.
I guess they're like, okay, what else could we do? Okay, we continually increase the camera. Oh, now we're up to 4 cameras on the back of our phone for good pictures. What else can we do?
How ridiculous can we be?
I think that the Z Flip in particular, and also the Razr, would be more popular than they are right now, and maybe next generation if the flip phones continue, we're gonna see Gen 2s, Gen 3s, yeah. But the technology that is used in them to bring that price point down to even at or lower than the S20s that are coming out or the iPhone 11s or whatever they're at now. I see them possibly get popular because of the aspect, and this is just me, of having a phone that could be more easily stored somewhere. And 2, when I drop that blast thing on concrete, I'm going to damage the outside and not that touchscreen.
Yeah, I think you've got a good point. With the tech and how expensive it is, that's kind of a deterrent for me. I don't want to pay for something that's a novelty item, like you said. That,
right. Especially a $1,400 novelty item that I accidentally miss my pocket, and it now becomes a $1,400 broken glass piece of trash paperweight. And I don't know. To me, it's not enough, reward for the risk there. And it's this, functional technology. It's fantastic what we're doing, but hopefully the technology that they push forward isn't just because of the race. Apple and Samsung have been in a big race for a lot of years, and companies like Nokia just kind of went off the wayside. I mean, there's only just a handful of big tech companies that are pushing phones out, and they're kind of all in that big race right now. So to me, this just seems like one of those new age fads. We'll, 5 years down the road, we'll look at things and go, you remember when this company came out with these crazy flip phones? It's just kind of the natural thing that happens. So I'm curious to see what they do with it, though. I do like your point about if I was to drop a phone like the Samsung Flip or the Z Flip, Galaxy Z Flip, and potentially damaging the outside of it, but the inside of it would be perfectly fine. You make a good point there. Could that be a good catch for people that want a functional phone that's small? Because we are getting into the newer generation of, for whatever reason, we went into this whole time era of let's build the biggest freaking possible screen we can to have on our cell phones. Let me stick this thing in my pocket that's 9.5 inches wide and looks like a tablet. I didn't get that. I don't understand why people wanted the giant phones. It's like, let me carry around this widescreen TV for my telephone, and then right
now we're getting into the smaller ones and even more compact stuff like the flip phones, and that shrinks the size down even more. So I don't know. It's got its pluses, it's got its minuses. The $1,400 price point to me, though, is the big deterrent.
Oof.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Especially for something you're like, oh, hey, you fit in the palm of my hand.
Yeah.
Yeah. I see it definitely dropping in price, as with any new the brand. We hit, you could say this is all just Gen 1 stuff, but we hit Gen 2, Gen 3, seeing a price point drop in those, especially if they're not rocking the same processor, RAM count, camera quality as their cousins, the normal smartphones that are coming out, like the S20s, or the next iPhones. That's one area that I want to see if Apple goes that way. Maybe Apple releases a flip phone, and I bet you that one out of the gate will be like spot on what a flip phone needs to be. They so far have, they're solid products. They always
Apple
are.
makes a good product. I absolutely give it to their quality. I just never have been a fan of the functions they do, their operating system.
Oh,
but
yeah, agreed on that point.
Hands down, they make a solid piece of tech. They really do.
Yep. They're not usually one to come to the market first. I think even with the iPhone, maybe they weren't the first. They had definitely hit the perfect phone when it first hit. But then along the way, people have been the first market, like I said, Samsung likes to do that. But then iPhone will come out, and if it, internally, if they see it's going to work well, they'll release a fantastic product. Look at what they did with the AirBuds.
Yeah.
Right. They weren't the first ones to do AirBuds or anything like that, but they perfected it.
Yeah, they definitely made a really nice piece of tech with those.
Yep. So I mean, that's an example right there, and you can go back and see multiples. But I would be curious if they enter into this fray, and then if we get later generations of it, and I sure hope that they will drop in price compared to others.
Well, and I mean, we've seen it with other technologies. Is some of this fad tech that comes out, you'll have 6 months to a year, couple of years worth of new generations of it that come out, and they just don't have the buy-in from the communities. That price point always stays fairly high, and then you've also got the flip point of that is you've got amazing tech that maybe has a few issues here and there. Samsung is that way. They make a good product, but they've had their bumps along the way, and they've got a massive following of people. Yet their price point, is it manageable? Sure, it is, but it really hasn't dropped a whole lot throughout the years. It's not, you don't see a big price increase like we are with these flip phones with some of their stuff. They've just kind of stayed, in their lane all throughout these years. Same with iPhone. The Apple products have never really been on the cheap side, but they've not really been on the overly expensive side either.
So we'll see. Get three in the market. I would expect. I think there's been other off brands that have attempted to release their own, or already on the market for this. But yeah, interesting turn of technology events regarding smartphones right there.
Great technology race 2020.
Yes.
It's cool. Well, I think we picked out a very genuinely good name for this episode called Overhaul.
Overhaul.
Good stuff. And with that, I think it is time to wrap the show up for this evening. So we want to say thank you to everybody who has joined us. We absolutely have enjoyed the new season. We got a lot of stuff planned for this year. So just thank you for hanging out with us. Really appreciate you guys.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We'll say this every episode, but we're just a couple geeks that like to talk about all things geekery. And it is, we greatly appreciate the support of listening, of the feedback, all of it. It is always welcome, always looked after. And if you guys did enjoy this episode, be sure to subscribe to the All Things Geekery podcast with having your favorite podcasting apps and drop us a review on iTunes or Spotify, as those greatly help the channel grow.
Yeah, and you guys can also find us out on Twitter My handle is at xdetachedx. Victus, you can find him out there at VictusATG, and you can also find our ATG Twitter account at the ATGcast. You can always shoot us questions and just do your daily interactions with us out there on Twitter. We always love just seeing what you guys are doing, hanging out with you guys. And then you can also subscribe to us over on iTunes, Overcast, Google Play, Spotify. Go check us out. Like Victus said, those reviews, likes, you just being here listening helps the show grow. So with that, Victus also spends a lot of time streaming on his Twitch channel. Definitely one thing that he has been growing, and I'll let him talk about that for just a minute.
Yep. If I'm at home and not traveling for work, I will be streaming and am streaming Monday through Friday, 8:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. You can check me out over on twitch.tv/VictusATG. And definitely hang out. I'm a variety streamer currently playing through games like Minecraft, Warframe. Probably will be starting Monster Hunter, played some Destiny, any of those. And of course, RPGs will definitely be in the mix.
Big nerd.
Absolutely.
Big nerd. And with that, that wraps up this podcast, guys. So as always, you guys stay awesome, and we will see you all in the next episode.